Hello guys, and welcome back to another indie game review and overview. Today we're playing Leisure Suit Larry Wet Dreams Don't Dry. What a name for a game. And as you saw as the video started, this is another game that is made in Unity, this time by a small development studio called Crazy Bunch, based out of Hamburg in Germany. This game really pays a lot of homage to the original Leisure Suit Larry game that was released in the 80s, starting with the questions that you have to answer to prove that you're old enough to be playing an adult-themed game. All I can say is thank goodness we have Google these days, because even though I'm more than old enough to play, I still can't answer most of these questions. Thankfully though, we just need to get through 4 in this game, whereas the original game you can see up in the corner there, you needed to answer 5 correctly. And if you're younger than 30, say, then there's a good chance that you've never heard of Leisure Suit Larry before. But back in the day, this series of adventure games was part of the Sierra adventure game empire that disappeared in the late 90s. And Larry was one of the forerunners of modern gaming. Okay, with the questions done, let's get into the intro and the game.
Finally, the time has come again. He has awakened.
Everyone thought he was gone.
Forgotten. And many said this was a good thing. But the chosen one from the prophecy lives. He will come. The alpacas will bow before him. And nothing will ever be the same.
Hello? Hey, babe. Why'd you turn off the light? Where are you?
Okay, the intro doesn't make much sense, but whatever, it's a Larry game and it doesn't need to. I'm sure we'll figure it out as we progress. Starting off in this first scene, I can't help but think what a cringy voice they've given to Larry. I think that part of the charm of the games in the old days was not having any voices, so characters always sounded how you imagined them to sound, but look, we'll get used to it. According to LinkedIn, there are about 7 people working for the Crazy Bunch studio, and their focus does seem to be more on virtual reality games, so it's very interesting to see them doing a take on a point-and-click adventure game, especially a classic from the 80s in Leisure Suit Larry.
And most of them are pitch black, damp, and gloomy. First things first. Time to put some light on the subject.
Okay, so this is a little different. It's been a while since I played a true adventure game. So in this game, it looks like we're able to play using a console controller. The implementation isn't perfect, but it works. I can't get the menu buttons to work, for example. You can use the mouse if you want a more authentic experience, but the console controller actually works pretty well. And there's a nifty little feature here in that you can use the trigger button, as I'm doing now, to cycle through the items in the scene, which makes it magnitudes easier to discover and find items, which wasn't a luxury that we had back in the day, where the original game, even before being remastered, used a text parser, and when combined with the pixel art of the 80s, this made adventure games really challenging. I guess these days people don't really have time or the inclination to spend ages typing random stuff into the console, trying to find random items on the screen. And the game does seem to flow pretty nicely in its pacing, without being too obscure.
What is that thing?
So let's solve the first puzzle and get out of this place, and there's a surprise in terms of where we're going to end up.
And most important, who is they? I feel like I've been sleeping for ages. Daylight. The elevator's already down. Wow, that must have been one hell of a night. Oh, everything's blurry. But it's a brand new day. And today the sun is shining for one man. And one man only. Larry Laffer.
and what a trip down memory lane. And again, referencing the original game from 1987, we're back at Lefty's. You can see in the top corner what this place looked like in the original, which was released more than 30 years ago. And I really appreciate how true they've stayed to the art style. The signage is pretty much exactly the same, from the font to the color. Overall, the art style of this game is fresh and really nicely drawn, and it makes you feel like you're playing a modern version of Larry 1. One of the frustrations that I have with using the trigger buttons to cycle through objects on the screen is that when I want to get an object that's right next to me, it sometimes takes the long path around. In this case, I'm just trying to open the door, but we're cycling through every other item on the screen. It's a little bit frustrating, but yeah, I guess I'll tolerate it if it helps me to find items a little bit more easily. Back inside Lefty's bar, and again you can see how closely it resembles the original bar. The exact same painting is still on the wall, the jukebox is still here, and even though you can't see it, the moose head is still up on the wall as well, and Lefty himself is behind the bar, looking a little bit worse for wear. Even the blue floor tiles match the shape and design of the original game. So again, the attention to detail here is great, and you can tell that the guys who made this game must have been fans of the originals. And that's a positive thing for fans of the series, given how appalling some of the other non-LLO iterations of Larry games have been in recent memory. Another minor gripe that I have is with some of the dialogue. The game will often force you to cycle through all of the available dialogue choices before you can move on to the next stage of the game, and this can take up a lot of time. The frustrating part is that many of those dialogue options don't actually contribute to furthering the game in any way. This conversation with Lefty is a perfect example.
Glowing box.
Wait a minute. Larry, you do realize you've been gone a long time, don't you?
What do you mean?
You completely dropped off the radar. Like for years.
Now, what are you saying? Oh, you mean it's already 1990? Or even 2000? Is the glowing box a remote control for a jetpack? Are we on Mars?
Well, see, it's... Come closer.
Okay, so if you've been watching closely, you've probably picked up that there is definitely a bit of a theme on time travel or cloning. Somehow Larry's found his way out of the 80s and into present day. And if you're not familiar with the original series, then I think you might find it hard to get into this game. However, if you're a fan of classic adventure games, Sierra and the Leisure Suit Larry series, then this looks like a game that could finally bring back some of the nostalgia of yesteryear, as aside from the comparisons that we've already done so far, there are plenty of Easter eggs littered around the game that pay tribute to the original, while at the same time it still carves out its own take on a classic, and my minor gripes aside, I think it does it pretty well at that.
Been in this hole before?
If you only knew how apt that was.
What do you mean?
Let me put it this way. The previous tenant was rather, universally hospitable.
That explains why guys keep showing up and saying Ken sent them. Not to mention the exotic smell of the mattress. Just when you think things are bad enough, something else comes along.
So you'll see some old places, and there are plenty of new and vibrant places to explore and characters to meet. The game is literally littered with cliches and innuendos, which you'll either love or hate. For example, you'll use the dating app Timber, the drive hailing app Unta, meet the famous Bill Jobs who runs a company called Prune, amongst many others. The puzzles are not too hard, but also not too easy, meaning that this is a pretty easy to play, relaxed game.
Living under
Under the street, actually.
Well, this is Bill Jobs, the legendary founder and CEO of Prune Incorporated.
And a genius.
And of course, a genius.
If you're a fan of the original series, or you're looking for something resembling a classic adventure gaming experience, then Wet Dreams Don't Dry should find its way into your collection. It carries a typical indie game price, meaning it's never too expensive, and during a Steam sale you can pick it up for a couple of bucks. I'll leave a link to the game in the description below. That's where we'll leave it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you like discovering and playing awesome indie games, then make sure you check out some of my other videos. Don't forget to gently caress the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next video.
It's not 3 devices, it's 1 device.
So it's schizophrenic, too?
Someday, I will kill each and every one of you.
What?
Nothing.